We should recognise that if Finland has a military threat to it from Russia, the assets that move faster, which will be the Air Force, and of course some aspects of the Royal Navy, would be the logical first choice.
Let's now widen the conversation out and stay with us, Lucy, in our daily briefing room, because about this time on the show each day, we talk to one of our leading tactical and strategic minds, someone with years of experience as a general officer at the highest level of military command. And today I can welcome General Sir Richard Barrons, who's former commander of the UK Joint Forces Command. Good afternoon to you, Richard.
Good afternoon.
Can I just get your thoughts on that point first of all? So partnership, a new as it were declaration of partnership with Finland. We had the same thing from Sweden earlier on. The idea of Britain going to Finland's aid if it's invaded, I suppose clearly a rather theoretical possibility, but a real distinct idea, and British boots on the ground. How likely do you imagine that might be? Forgive me for drawing you deeply into a profound hypothesis, but what do you think?
Yeah, it's not something that's going to happen this week, and the term boots on the ground is becoming shorthand for almost all forms of military activity, and we should recognise that if Finland has a military threat to it from Russia, the assets that move faster, which will be the Air Force, and of course some aspects of the Royal Navy, would be the logical first choice. Boots on the ground to help a country like Finland out is remote, but the point of solidarity is really significant.
Yes, and I guess Finland, more so even than Sweden, just at the moment, seems increasingly keen to become a member of NATO, and when that alliance and Finland's part in it is cemented, then you'll have Article 5 of the NATO treaty, which requires member countries, at that point 30, 31, 32 if Sweden joins, to come to each other's defence if invaded. So we're talking about the period between seeking membership and the period of acquiring membership.
That's absolutely true, and it matters now because of the difficult confrontation we're all having with Russia. So this will be reassuring to Finland and Sweden at a political and a military level, and it will be an irritant and a defeat for Russian politics and policy. And the point you made a moment or two ago about, it doesn't look likely that given the Russian preoccupation in Ukraine, that this is imminent, I think is absolutely right. But we all now need to recognise that as the war in Ukraine eventually comes to some sort of conclusion, and I don't think that's imminent, and Russia confronts the fact its military has been a disaster in the way that it's performed in this current campaign, it is much more likely to embark on a programme of comprehensive reform in the way other broken armed forces have had to do in the past. And we should worry a lot about the state of the Russian armed forces in 2030 as well as the condition in 2022.
Can I just briefly with you touch on a wider geopolitical question? Because today very much on the political agenda is the idea of Britain engaging, some would say triggering, a trade war with the European Union, which would have enormous ramifications for our relationship with European allies, with whom we are working pretty closely now in Ukraine. As a former commander, as a strategist, what view would you take of a trade war at a time like this?
I think it would be deeply unhelpful, because anything that chips away at the unity of the West, of Europe and its place in the West, is unhelpful in maintaining a common face to Russia and in the support of Ukraine. So not only is the outcome of this likely to be unhelpful, the timing is poor. And we always need to remind ourselves that Brexit never changed geography, and it never changed the geopolitical security dynamics of Europe. And we are all, everyone in Europe, are going to have to bind together for this much more challenging world we now live in.
Lucy Fisher, chief political commentator, but also years of service as Times defence editor, probably know Richard Barrons very, very well. Do you reckon that while we're discussing, and ministers are discussing behind their closed doors, the idea of a trade war with Europe, do you think General Barrons' advice there, don't do it, is going to be echoed from the ranks of the MOD from a strategic perspective? Because you'd imagine the Foreign Office would take a similar view too.
Well, I think it's a really good question. I think that the Ministry of Defence tends to stick within its brief more than marauding over the territory of the Foreign Office. So I'm not sure if there will be the sort of outreach to warn against that. But certainly Ben Wallace has got a sharp sort of strategic brain. I'm sure he will be concerned about that and won't want to see the focus taken off the cooperation that we need across the rest of the continent and indeed with the US on Ukraine.
And you'd imagine the Foreign Office, in the tradition of diplomatic thinking, would be wary of such a move. But of course, Liz Truss seems to be the chief hawk when it comes to this policy.
She does indeed. I think that's sort of the way that she is trying to burnish her own leadership credentials for any future campaign. But it's certainly been an escalation of rhetoric on Ukraine between her and Ben Wallace in recent weeks, evoking analogies like comparing Putin's activities to those of the Nazis. It just seems to get more and more robust as each week goes by.
Yeah, I just wanted to get yours and Richard Barrons' thoughts on that just for a moment there. We're going to return to this subject later on in the last hour of the programme. But if I could take you back to the Ukraine war, Richard. So we're now seeing reports, aren't we, that of more tension inside Russia, even a report that the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, has sidelined the FSB. That's the security intelligence service of Russia, because doesn't think they've been up to the job. There's some reports that they don't fully believe in the invasion of Ukraine, and he's relying more on military intelligence. So if you were on the ground there as part of the command structure, what would you be making of a development like that?
So I think we can be quite confident. We've seen in train now for some weeks a transition in leadership from the Russian side of this war away from where it started, which was the Putin's inner circle fed by the FSB. And in the light of the cataclysmic Russian failure to get the opening stages of this war right, there's been a transition of control back to the military, and the appointment of a single commander in Ukraine was important. The news that the GRU are going to take over the intelligence lead, they are, of course, the military intelligence organization, is another indication of that, because there doesn't seem to be any sign of Russia backing off this war, and it needs to find some success. And to do that, it's banking that its military will find the way out in the way that the intelligence services found a very flawed way in.
So a long way to go. Putin said to be digging in for a long conflict, because so far, on all the evidence, it is not going according to plan. General Sir Richard Barrons, good to talk to you. Lucy Fisher, chief political commentator, will be chatting a little later on in the programme. We're just going to go off to the top of the hour to our briefing at 6. All of the news of the day between 6 and 6:15 here on Times Radio.